Hello everyone, it's been a while since we last met, so thanks to those who stayed with us and welcome to our new subscribers. At this point we have about 30 covers to various songs, and for each of them we did a saxophone recording and processing. But before I can start mixing the tracks together, I had to do some basic processing to eliminate all the technical issues that may arise. And now I think I can share the first steps of this process with you, because I feel quite confident with it. And I believe that these steps can be applied to any other instrument as well, not just the saxophone. I'm Alex, and today we will be talking about the very first things you need to do with a recorded instrument. I'm gonna share my workflow and explain some nuances along the way, so if you want to know more about that, stay tuned. But first I need to explain what I mean by saying first steps. The thing is that while working on projects I have 3 separate sessions, and the very first of them is the raw session, where I have all the samples, MIDIs, recordings, and they are all unprocessed. It means they don't have any effects, any saturation, compression, equalization and so on. But still, there is something going on there that eases the further processing when it comes to mixing. And there are 3 big steps that I do here, and they are the preparation step, the timing and the tuning. I'm gonna be talking about that in a minute, but one more disclaimer here. I'm working in Ableton Live, so if you're using a different DAW, you'll probably have to do a little research on how to perform the same operations in it. Point number 1 in preparation step, MIDI track. So this is a habit I developed not so long time ago, but it greatly helps along the way. The point is that for every saxophone track that we record, there should be a MIDI track in parallel. This may seem like an additional work if you don't have notes, but trust me, it will save you time later and you will get better results.
Not only MIDI track will help you with timing and tuning, which I'll be talking about a bit later, but in case you have some improvisation written by you or the performer, it will be stored as MIDI notes so that you will be able to come back to it later if needed. In short, it's a cool trick and nice habit that I highly recommend you develop too. Not mentioning that sometimes it comes as an additional ear training, which is never a bad thing.
Point number 2 in preparation step, general timing. This is also a very important thing. I need to make sure that the timing of the clip is aligned to general timing of the song. So what does that mean? Sometimes when we record a saxophone, the playback track comes from a YouTube video. And later when I combine both tracks in DAW and try to align them by the sound, it may lead to a mismatch of timing between the recorded clip and the playback track.
How can we check that? I can just click on any beat inside the clip and note the position of these little arrows in the arrangement view. If they also mark the beat, the clip is aligned. If not, it should be adjusted by dragging the clip left or right. So let's see if we need to adjust our clip here. The timings don't match, so let's align the clip. Now, if I click on the beat inside the clip, it matches the beat of the project, so the clip is aligned. And point number 3 in preparation step, the warp mode. There are several of them in Ableton, and the default one is defined by your settings. I prefer keeping beats mode as the default one, so for recorded clips I have to manually change it to complex or complex pro, because otherwise I will definitely run into audio artifacts.
After preparation is done, I can actually start working on a recorded track or clip. And the aim is to fix 2 remaining issues, which are timing and tuning. The first one comes from the fact that there's always a human factor, so my job is to make sure that notes play as natural as possible. And that means that depending on the material, I will either have to align them strictly to the grid or let them be lazy to give song a relaxed feel.
Let's fix the first one now. I'm going to show you how to fix that in a general way first, and then I'll show a quick way how you can do that in Ableton. So generally to reposition notes we'll need word markers, which can be added either by clicking on the corresponding menu after right-clicking on the audio track, by pressing Ctrl-I or Command-I, or by just double-clicking on the audio track. And by the way, to remove the word marker you can also just double-click on it. Once you get the marker, you can move it anywhere you want, which you can also do using arrow keys if the marker is selected, and parts of audio clip will follow. Since we're here for tips and tricks, the questions are where to put word markers exactly. Because I can put word markers here where there is no signal yet, or I can put it somewhere here at the end of the attack phase where the volume is at maximum, or somewhere in between. So which one is the correct one, and does it make a difference? The answer to the last question is yes, it does, and there is a simple explanation why. If I place a marker in the very beginning of attack phase and align it to the beats, the note may go too much offbeat, which will be hearable. If I place it at the end of the attack phase and align it from there, I'll get too much signal on the beat, which will result in clipping and will require additional treatment later. So ideally I'll place word markers in between, which deals with both issues.
The last important thing I want to talk about here is the order in which you can process the notes. I mean, you can go from beginning to end or from end to beginning. What? Yes, and let me explain.
I'll put markers for just two first notes and align them. Let's see what happens in each scenario. If I go from beginning to end, I will align the first note just fine. But when I'll be positioning the second note, see what happens with the attack of the first note. It goes offbeat way too much, and now I have to go back there and fix it. So I'll delete the marker of the first note and add a new one. And position it to the beat, but this time I'll see if I need to adjust the position of my marker so that the attack sits just right. Note that whatever I do with the first note, the attack of the second note remains unchanged. This is how it happens if you go from the end to the beginning. You get more control over attack phases of notes and can do everything without worrying about what happens to the notes you've already processed, because there is nothing happening to them. If you want to speed up the process, you can make Ableton do some part of the job for you. If you look closely, you'll notice some gray arrows above the audio track. Actually, these are the word markers that Ableton has detected automatically based on the track, and you can activate them by either clicking on Quantize menu or by pressing Ctrl-U or Command-U. You will instantly get all the word markers and will be able to work with them right away, although some quantization will be done by Ableton already. Also note that word markers are inserted in positions right where we need them. Ableton may either skip some notes, especially when one follows the other and second note doesn't have a standing out attack phase, or consider some clicks that may come from the recorded instrument as additional notes and mark them as well. So anyway, you will have to manually go through the track and fix all the issues, but automated markers positioning really helps here. Keep an eye on the attack phase of each note, and if Ableton put the marker somewhere you don't like, fix it. And by the way, here's when MIDI track comes really handy. I can literally sort out with phrases quickly without constantly hearing the result. And I can be sure it sounds correct in terms of timing. Now let me show you how I do it. I have already activated the markers, And now I can go to the end of the clip and start adjusting the notes. I can do it like that. I need a MIDI track as a reference, and now I can just move the notes accordingly. Okay, let's speed it all up and set the timer to see how much time it will take to process one track.
After the timing is done, it's time to fix some tuning issues if there are any. And this one comes from the fact that saxophone may not be ideally tuned because of the mouthpiece placement. And I can say that sometimes we received comments on that matter previously, which I am personally thankful for. So I keep an eye on that issue since.
I need to mention here that saxophone is easier to tune than most of other instruments, because if it is detuned, all the notes are detuned equally, which may not be the case with string instruments or vocals, for example. In the first case, you can quickly check the tone of recorded notes against MIDI track and correct the transposition precisely using the tune option here. It can be changed from -50 cents up to +50 cents, which makes one semitone in total. Adjust it until both signals sound identical and you're good to go. In the second case, you'll need to automate the process using envelope, which can be activated here. Then choose clip in the first menu and transposition in the second, and you'll be able to adjust transposition of each individual note. Mind that after you placed an automation point, you can edit its value after right-clicking on it, and you can adjust it from -100 cents and up to 100 cents, which is a half a tone in both directions. Yes, it will take some time to do the whole work, but if you need precise adjustment for individual notes, this is one of the ways to do it.
After I did all this work over a recorded track, I can finally export the track and start a new session for a fix and mixing. So that's it for today. I hope it was helpful. As you can see, there are plenty of things to check even before you can start creating beauty using plugins and effects. But taking care of fundamentals is part of the craft, so we have to dedicate some time for that too. Thanks for watching, and if you have any questions, comments, if you want to share your tips or experience, let's discuss all of that in the comments below. And I will see you in next videos. Bye bye!